Thanks for tuning in to the Big Money Investor Show with Jim Ingersoll, where we talk about the best strategies for you to create cash flow and long-term wealth. Investing like the very top investors. Visit us online at www.bigmoneyinvestor.com and enjoy today's show.
All right, our very special guest today on the Investor Success Podcast is Cindy Crane. Cindy is from the cash flow capital of the United States, which is Jackson, Mississippi, where there are some amazing deals where you get phenomenal returns on investment. I've watched Cindy grow tremendously as a very active investor over the last few years. She is an active, on-the-street investor in Jackson, and she continually fills her pipeline with very motivated sellers. She's actively closing deals, and what I really love is she's creating long-lasting passive cash flow. Cindy's been a regular at our boot camps here in Richmond, Virginia. She's also a great member of our Investor Success Mastermind and Coaching Program. So welcome, Cindy. It is so nice to have you on the Investor Success Podcast today. Let's start with this. I know that you listen to a whole lot of podcasts each week, and you like to use your car as a mobile classroom. I've been in your car with you, so I know this is true. Would you mind sharing some of the podcasts you enjoy listening to each week and why you like them?
You bet, Jim. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Oh, it's so nice to have you, Cindy.
One of the guys I came across just as when I was looking at books, I'm always looking on Amazon at real estate books to read, was a young man named Peter Voogd. And he has a Game Changers. He's a young entrepreneur, and he also has a book, 6 Months to Six Figures. It's a real, like a 10-minute podcast, not a lot of fluff. They get down to the business, and he has good tips that you can implement that day.
I like that
really
podcast
think that's a strong one
as well. So you and I listen to some of the same podcasts. I think that is an excellent podcast. Have you read his book as well?
I have not yet. Walter ordered it, but I have not read it yet.
All right, very good. Are there any other podcasts you like to listen to on a regular basis?
I do. I have a couple more that I like, and one guy that helped me a lot when I was just starting out a few years ago is Sean Terry. I actually went to see him in Atlanta one time, and he's a very positive, uplifting person. I think that's really important in our business because you kind of get knocked back every now and then, and he has a really good message that's positive. A lot of what he said went over my head when I was beginning, but I just kept listening, and it made me feel good to listen and know that I was heading in the right direction.
Okay, so Peter Vu and Sean Terry.
And the last one I think is probably my favorite as far as real estate, other than your podcast, is Joe Mccall. I really like Joe Mccall because he does a lot of virtual wholesaling and he has a lot of good information, and he's really in depth and gives a lot of detail on his podcast. And I enjoy listening to him as well when I have a quiet moment.
Excellent. I love the way you use your car as a mobile classroom. I do the same thing. Cheryl and I, when we take a long trip, she's always good about letting me listen to podcasts and also books on CD. Like her parents live in Nashville and I'm in Richmond, so it's like a 10-hour drive. And I think every time we go to Nashville, we listen to the book Think and Grow Rich, and she just allows me to listen to that over and over. I listen to these Jim Rohn success CDs. Jim Rohn's been gone a while, but he's had a big impact on my life. And using your car as a mobile classroom, I think, is a great way to go. We both do it.
I would say, Jim, one thing. I'm sorry, because I've always been pretty frugal. So I would say to people who are starting and even people who aren't, go to the library and your local library, and there's a lot of books on tape or CDs, and they can order things for you from other libraries, and that's a good way to listen and not spend any money.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's a great way to go, no doubt. Let's see. Before we jump into some great discussions on working with motivated sellers, I always love to ask our guests to share something that motivates them, focuses them, or helps them along on their path to success. So, Cindy, do you have any tips for our listeners today on success in general?
Well, I think for me, I've always been a very competitive person, and I was very success-oriented, and I raised in the South. So I'm kind of tempered because I've tried to be nice and friendly and helpful to everybody. So that kind of throttles me back on being too aggressive. But I think if you figure out what you want in life, I know you don't have all the details because I still don't see the picture completely clearly where I'm going and what I want. Yeah. But I have a good idea, and I think you just have to have something to work for. And don't give up. Just be very persistent and be focused. And if you get knocked down, then keep standing up and listen to people like Mississippi's Zig Ziglar, that kind of, and Jim Rohn and some of those guys that help pick you up and prop you up.
You know, we even heard that at my boot camp last week, didn't we? From like 2 or 3 different people, Connor Steinbrook from Dallas and a couple others who were close to the point of giving up, and instead they got themselves back up. They went over some hurdles, and that really led to a lot of success for them. So that's a great tip to give, I think.
And that 3 Feet from Gold, that's a great book on tape or a book to read. Mm-hmm. Don't give up.
And I think like you, I think we both agree success starts in your head. Those first 6 inches and getting rid of those self-limiting thoughts is really important.
That's an understatement. That is the most important thing.
You got to believe in yourself.
You got to work on it.
There's so many people around us, like negative neighbors or in-laws or parents or brothers and sisters who tell us we can't do it, that you got to go out there and work a job the rest of your life, and it's just not true. Well, let's start here, Cindy. Introduce yourself a little bit more and tell a little bit about your backstory and how you started investing.
Well, again, I'm Cindy Crane. I'm proud to be here to share with y'all today. I live in a little small town about an hour away from Jackson, so I drive in every day, so I get to use my car for the Roland University. And I first bought a rental house probably about 10 years ago. It was the house next door to me. I had no clue what I was doing. My neighbor called me over and said, "Hey, do you know who I could get to buy my house?" And I'm thinking, me. You know, I didn't know where to start. I didn't have anybody to reach out to. So I just jumped out there and did it. You know, that fire ready aim. And I got a bank loan, and I'm proud to say that's the only bank loan I've ever had on a property, thanks to some very good mentors. So I learned a different, better way. And then I gradually bought, my elderly neighbors passed away, and I bought some more houses around my neighborhood. And I knew I wanted to do real estate. I had a real job, you know, but I knew I always loved houses. When I got divorced and I had to have a job. So I ended up looking in a newspaper and found a guy that would hire me to be a carpenter's assistant. And we always, my dad had cows and horses and bulldozers, so we always grew up working. I had been to college, you know, was a professional student, had a couple of degrees. Yeah. And so I went and worked for these guys, and the first day I worked, I drove nails, hand drove nails for $6 an hour. And
with a hammer? The old-fashioned way? All right.
We put down subfloor with the hammer and nails. And so I was fortunate to work with these guys in Mississippi, and they taught me a little bit of everything. I've been under a house, on top of a house, done some plumbing. I've painted for a living. I've done a lot of trade kind of things. So I have a good background, and I would say if somebody wanted to do the same thing, you could at least volunteer and go work for Habitat and maybe pick up some things, you know, to learn about, you know, because I think it's really important to have the basics, at least have a working knowledge of how a house works, and so you can estimate repairs and know when somebody's, you know, doing a good job. But I just moved on from there and kept going forward, and I decided I was going to go to the local real estate group meeting about 3 years ago, and I didn't know anybody. And here, I don't know if it's the same way everywhere, but here it was kind of, you know, these people had known each other for a long time, and I was kind of an outsider. They were a little cliquish, you know, but I just kept hanging around, and I would go and eat lunch and listen. And this guy named Walter Wofford was offering a bird dog class, and he was trying to find people to go find houses for him. So myself and a few other people that have been on cruises in Jackson, that are from Jackson, we all got together and would go to Walter's classes, and he had us driving for dollars, and there's no telling how many miles we put on my car. Carlene and I did. And no telling how many stamps. You know, I'd watch TV, if I watched TV at night at that time, and I would fold flyers and stuff envelopes and address them. And anytime I was riding in the car with somebody, I was, you know, writing addresses on envelopes. And it just seemed like sometimes it takes forever. And is that deal ever going to happen? And is it real? And then one day we looked up and a guy called us from our flyer.
Mm-hmm.
And he was an out-of-state investor, one of the guys from California that had spent way too much money on a house and couldn't keep it, you know, rented across the country. And he was ready to sell. And at the time, we had a bad hailstorm, and so Walter said, why don't you see if the guy has any insurance on the house? Well, lo and behold, he did. So we offered him $3,000 for the house. It was a boarded-up 3-bedroom, 1-bath house. It wasn't vandalized bad, but it didn't have a water heater or a condenser. And he said, sure, I'll take that. So we got him to talk to his insurance. Well, the insurance policy paid like $2,875. So we wrote him a check for $125 and ended up with a house.
All right, so that is unbelievable. That's cheaper than an old used car that's 10 years old. So it started with your ability to get out of your house and drive for dollars, and then you found the vacant house and you created a flyer. What did you do with the flyer? Did you post it on the mailbox? Did you nail it on the front door? What did you do with it that allowed you to connect with that seller? Do you remember?
Yes, the land roll here in Hinds County is online. And so we learned, Walter taught us how to use the land roll, and we used the land roll to, it had the assessed owner's address, and we just mailed a standard we buy houses, we can close fast, all the things that we had no idea how to do, but we put it on the flyer and sent it out anyway.
That is awesome. So you bought a house for $125, is that?
Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. That's
that is unbelievable. All right, well, that is awesome.
We turned around and sold it for $3,000.
Okay, so you made $3,000 on it. You basically wholesaled it, right?
Correct. Yes, sir.
And that is great. And so let's talk about finding deals a little bit. You talked about driving for dollars, finding vacant houses, and reaching out to the people that own boarded-up houses and things like that. But what are some of the other ways that you like to find houses nowadays?
Well, it seems one of the ways it works best for me is, and that's thanks to you, I never would have known about it, but Investor Carrot, and I know from the boot camp last weekend that a lot of people use Investor Carrot. So that's a great resource and great websites, have lots of content, and I think Google, picks them up. So they rank high because of the content. Because I don't do Google AdWords. I'm going to this year, but I've had great success with that. And I think the leads that I get are good leads. They're not tire kickers. They're serious.
So what is the web address for your We Buy Houses type website then, so people can check it out?
Okay, it's www.webuyjackson.com.
So webuyjackson.com, and this is Investor Carrot is a really great system that I highly recommend. And Trevor Mock and his team up there in the beautiful Pacific Northwest are crunching out these websites for folks like us that are investing in houses and being a discount home buyer to generate leads you've got you're not doing pay-per-clicks. You're using Trevor's templated website, and it's creating traffic, and that has led to your ability to make money, right?
Oh, most certainly. I've got lots of deals from that website. I don't have a ton of leads. Like, I don't get 100 leads every week, but I get maybe 1 to 2, and I would say half of those are deals that I've done.
I would rather have 1 or 2 really good leads that I can close on than 100 leads that I just waste my time on, wouldn't you?
Correct. Yes. I agree 100%.
If you were going to add a couple other ways that you like to find deals, what would they include?
Well, I think that referrals probably. I think that you have to constantly be promoting yourself and what you do wherever you go. I don't have any business cards. You know, I know we talked about it. We kind of got shamed a little bit for that this weekend. But I may get some business cards in the future, but people know me. And I think, Jim, I add a little value to people because even the folks that call me because of the Improve in Jackson, the affordable homeowner program we're doing in Jackson to seller finance houses, even if they don't buy a house from me, I still offer them some kind of value, whether it's, you know, give them a suggestion about where to get help with their credit, or, you know, I always tell them, if you were my sister or if you were my brother, this is what I'd suggest you do. And I think that gets my phone to ringing a lot because people trust me and they think I'm really looking out for what's best for them. You know, it takes time and a little emotional effort, but I think it pays off. But my most recent deal was from a contractor guy that I knew, and he wasn't a very
let's
good
talk
one.
about
he
that
actually
one.
Took advantage of me. he
All right, let's talk
actually
about
took advantage of me.
So you got a referral from a contractor. Tell us what happened.
This young guy that I actually found on Craigslist, and I find lots of interesting, helpful people. There's some not so good people, but a lot of interesting, helpful people on Craigslist. And this guy was a young guy, and he didn't work out as far as working for me or doing any jobs, but he did kind of do some maintenance for a man who owns a bunch of houses, and this guy was interested in selling them. And so he told me about him, and I looked at him, and I sent him a contract, and it took several weeks, but we finally met yesterday and got the ink on the contract.
And,
for 4 houses.
Okay, for 4 houses. So a contractor that you met on Craigslist, you didn't hire him as a contractor, but you told him you're a discount home buyer, basically, and you're looking for deals. Did you sign him up as a bird dog, or are you giving him like a fee for helping you?
You know, he took a little advantage of me because I was busy and I didn't get to follow. I didn't do it. You know, that was my mistake. So I probably won't this time. But if it was we were on good terms, I certainly would. I would give him a referral fee. Okay,
so you didn't use him as a contractor, but he said, hey, I'm doing, when you were vetting him or interviewing him, he said, hey, I'm working for this guy that owns all kinds of property in Jackson, and he may be interested in selling some of it, so he connected you to the seller. Is that kind of what happened?
He sure did, and he actually delivered the contracts to the seller because, you know, sometimes they're old school. They don't have email. They can't print contracts. So he delivered the contracts to the seller for me.
Okay, so tell me about the 4 houses and how did that go? How did you figure out how much you could offer and how did you do this one?
Well, he said I like to try to make people give me a price, you know, so I know whether it's even close or not, you know.
Well, sometimes I find when I make the seller give me the price, they give me a number lower than I was going to give them.
Well, you know, my horse trader, great Uncle Quincy, said you can always go down, but you can't ever go up. You know?
Okay, so it's a horse trader, your great uncle, and what was his name?
Quincy Moore.
Of course. All right, awesome. Yeah, you kind of.
He was a famous horse trader.
Yeah, that's a great tip for everybody, actually. So, where did you get these contracts finalized? You actually met at a Waffle House, right?
We did. He gave me his prices, and they were good prices. And I was good with it. And so we've been trying to catch up with each other for the last couple of days, and he and I met at the Waffle House yesterday afternoon. I was running errands, and I ran down there, and he had his food, and he pushed his food aside, and I hung up the telephone, and he had the folder there, and we just chit-chatted for a minute. That's the first time I've ever met him. And he said, how soon do you think we can close? He said, I'm not in a hurry. I just want to know. And I said, well, you know, I have to, you know, get my funders, my financial friends, you know, on the phone and take it by the attorney's office and let him do the title work. And then probably within the next 2 weeks, I want to go see the houses. I've not seen the inside of them yet, but I know him and I know that he takes good care of his houses. So I've seen them from the outside. So hopefully we'll close on them in a couple of weeks.
All right. Well, that is an awesome story. Now, and that's a big tip for everybody listening right now. When you're buying houses seller direct, sometimes you can close the deal in the living room or in the kitchen or on the screen porch of the seller. But sometimes they want to take your contract review it with a family member, an attorney, or somebody else, and you need to meet them back. And I've met people back at Burger King. I've met people back at Hardee's, in different places like that. But I've never done a deal at Waffle House. So I thought that was very intriguing. I like the way that you said, Cindy, that you met him, you sat down at Waffle House, and then you got down to business. The seller pushed his food to the side, put the folder on the table, had a couple basic questions, and you ratified 4 deals, right?
That's correct. Yes, sir. That's correct.
So let's talk about these 4 houses a little bit. Can you give us like a range in price on how much they were? Sure.
There was one house that's a really nice 2-bedroom, 1-bath house, vinyl siding on a big corner lot. It was he told me he wanted $30,000 for 2 of the houses together.
Okay.
So
all right.
The other house was that part of that $30,000 equation was a 3-bedroom, 1-bath house that needed some work. But he had just had a guy that was kind of a handyman he had at least for $250 a month just to have somebody in it. But it's got central air and heat. Everything works. It just needs some, sprucing up a little bit. So I kind of swapped the numbers around. I said I determined that I could, because I'm thinking about the person that's going to be the lender for me. So I put a value of $16,000 on that 3-bedroom, 1-bath house, and I put a value of $14,000 on that 2-bedroom, 1-bath house. So $30,000 for the 2. And then the other house was a 4-bedroom, 1-bath house that I actually had intentions to turn into a 2-bathroom house. But he told me yesterday, he said, well, I already rented it, Cindy. So I'm going to let it ride. So that's
what's it rented for?
Well, he rented it for $700 to a young lady that works for the state of Mississippi. She has a good state job. $700, that's lower than I would have liked, but it's a paying tenant that's already in place. So I'm not. And
how much will that house be?
$20,000.
Okay.
It has a brand new architectural shingle roof on it.
Oh my gosh. This is why I started off in the intro saying Jackson, Mississippi is one of the cash flow capitals of the United States. So you got a 4-bedroom house for $20,000. It's cheaper than a car. And unlike a car that depreciates over time, you've already got instant equity, and it produces $700 a month of cash flow.
Correct.
I mean, it's unbelievable. So, okay, so you got 2 houses.
Taxes and insurance on that house is probably $150.
Okay. So you're going to net $550 a month.
Correct.
And you got 2 other, basically a 3-bedroom house for $14,000. And then you got a 4th house. Tell us about the 4th house.
The 4th house is a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. That's a vinyl siding house, got central air and heat, and it is rented on the Section 8 HUD program for $770, I think.
Okay.
With a tenant that's been there for a while, and it's $20,000 house. I'll pay $20,000.
So that's another $20,000. Rented at $770 a month.
Yes, sir.
Well, it looks to me like you are in the cash flow creation business, Cindy. Doesn't it?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Because, I mean,
I'm
you're
very
and yeah, you are, but you're out on the street making it happen. So you're putting yourself in the right position to make it happen. And you're very personable. You're very trustworthy. You have a lot of credibility. You're a local expert at this point. You really are that expert. I mean, I love this 4-house package that all started with you looking for a contractor on Craigslist.
True.
You know what I mean? And then you tell him what you do, and he connects you to a landlord with a whole bunch of property. Do you think you'll get more deals out of this guy later?
He already told me that I would. He's got more houses he wants to sell.
All right, so that sounds like more and more and more cash flow. I love it. So, Cindy, so you've got to buy these houses you're going to get basically 4 houses for $70,000. And you don't want to go to the bank and get a loan. So tell me how you would finance, how would you pay for these houses? So I'm assuming even if you had $70,000 in your checking account right now, you wouldn't want to spend it. How would you finance these properties?
Well, I'm fortunate to have been involved in Walter Wofford's world, and so that opened more doors to me than I could ever have imagined. And I met people like you and David Phelps and Quincy Long, who's the CEO of Quest IRA, and all the wonderful people that are at your boot camp. I have lots of longtime friends there that we go on the IRA cruise, Financial Friends Network. So I have people like that who've taken an interest in me. I think if you're a new person, if you get out there and put yourself out there and you don't quit, you keep trying, that people that have, people like you, somebody helped you get where you are,
Absolutely.
I know a lot of people probably helped you along the way. So I think in our circle, those people are more than willing to help somebody who's trying to help themselves. And I think that's the kind of people that if you're a beginner, you need to put yourself around.
That's a huge success tip, Cindy, that you just gave us again. And I've got lots of little nuggets today. You are motivating and inspiring me, and I know that you're motivating and inspiring every person that's listening to this podcast.
Well, thank you, Jim.
So you're not going to use your own money, and you're not going to use a bank. So you're going to go out there and find somebody with some retirement money or some money sitting in a CD, or somebody who's sick and tired of the stock market, who would love to invest in real estate but doesn't know how to go out and find deals like this, right? And they're gonna participate in a deal like this with you.
Right.
Correct?
Right. I'll probably just because I have so much going on, I may do some transactional funding and get those deals closed quickly, and then maybe interview the tenants and see if and set up a plan with them. So I'm not sure quite how the more permanent financing will fall out, but it's wonderful to have options. And when you're in a group amongst people like I just referenced, you have the world is your oyster. You have lots of choices.
Well, Cindy, maybe there's somebody listening right now that has money in a CD or has some money sitting on the sidelines, and in the future, if you find more deals like this, they would be interested in participating in that deal with you. So what is your email so somebody could contact you?
It's Cindy G. Crane at gmail.com, CINDYGCRANE at gmail.com.
All right. And so if that's you and you're listening, I would highly recommend that you reach out to Cindy and talk to her about this deal or a deal like this, because she's going to be putting more deals under contract that are just like this, $20,000, $30,000 deals that will cash flow or rent for $700, $800, $900 a month.
That's correct.
Which is amazing. So you didn't go to the MLS. You didn't rely on a broker. All you did is told somebody what you do, and they connected you to another landlord who was willing to allow you to help solve his problem by getting rid of some property.
Right.
I think it's amazing.
Well, I think it's that reciprocity and the persuasion. People want to help other people, and they like feeling like they're doing something good and helping somebody. So I think that's a big part of it too. Is the relationship you have with people, and you promote yourself.
No, you're right. And, the traditional person that's out there selling a house, there's a lot of stress involved. They think they've got to go to a realtor. The realtor is going to throw a for sale sign in the yard. They may do some open houses. And the people that you and I are dealing with, typically there's repairs needed on the house. It might be vacant. A lot of things there that you can help offer to help solve their problem. Is that true?
That's true, and that's one of the things that when you're negotiating with somebody, if it is a homeowner, and you listen so that you can pick up on what's their trigger. Is it making that mortgage payment each month, or is it they don't want to have to do the repairs, or they need some money for whatever reason, and that's the problem you try to solve is what's their big trigger, their pain point.
Yeah, it reminds me of one I just bought at the end of last year, and this was a house they had listed on the MLS, and it expired. And when I met with them, it's a house that went through probate, and the kids inherited it. And I remember sitting in the living room, Cindy, and I asked them, what was important to you in the sale of this house? And the first thing the daughter said was, do you see that corner over there in the living room? She said, I was married in that corner. And she said, what's important to me about this house is a fast, easy closing where we don't have to worry about anything. And it wasn't price. It wasn't anything else. It was fast, easy as is, because they had oil heat and they had some repairs that needed to be made. They didn't want to have to deal with a home inspection and financing through FHA and all that other crap. You know what I mean? It was just like fast, easy, let's get it done. We signed a contract, closed 2 weeks later. That's how you get deals done today, right?
That's right. You just take care of, you solve their problem. That's what we do. We solve their problem.
That's what we solve their problem. That's what we do. Do you have any closing tips for anybody that you're just sort of thinking about right now, Cindy? Anything further?
I think that if you're kind of getting started in real estate, I think you need to go ahead and work on some skills. You need to be organized and disciplined, and sharpen some bookkeeping skills. Because when it starts, it's going to be like an avalanche, and then you're going to be behind the 8 ball. So I'd say go ahead and live your life like you are successful, even if you're not. But go ahead and live that way.
That's a great tip.
Mm-hmm. And
live your life
the other thing is like you're
successful right now. What was the other thing, Cindy?
I was going to say don't get distracted by too many shiny objects. If you're going to start out in real estate, I think everybody would pretty much agree that wholesaling is the way to go, because you don't have to have a lot of money invested. You can do things on the cheap. But I think you should stay focused and get good at that and not be distracted by other methods of buying and selling houses and other means. Just be a wholesaler and be good at it.
I think if you're a good wholesaler right now, you can dominate your market. Like I did about when I first started doing investing 10 years ago. I did 120 wholesale deals in a year. If you're in a good market right now, you could do the same thing if you're so inclined to do so. But that's an important point. I was on one of our one-on-one coaching calls yesterday, Cindy, and I told one of our members in the Investor Success Mastermind to be careful of the shiny object syndrome, because there's a lot of squirrels you can go chase, and you'll end up down in some rabbit hole somewhere, and you're going to lose focus on your deal flow and your pipeline and keeping those deals flowing if you get too distracted and lose that focus. So that's a big point to make, and I'm glad you shared it. Cindy, I think you're an amazing investor. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say, I know that when you do get sidetracked, that affects that 6 inches between your ears. That makes you doubt yourself and makes you feel like that makes you want to give up. So I think you just stay focused and let nothing get in your way.
Oh, I think it's so true. And Cindy, one more time, what's your email for everybody if they were interested in participating in a deal with you in the cash flow capital of Jackson, Mississippi?
Sure. And if anybody wants to, I'll be glad to, talk to you and help you any way I can. And you're welcome to come to Jackson sometime. But it's cindygcrane@gmail.com.
And I've been to Jackson. I love to go to the Love Shack with the folks there. It's just like a mastermind environment, and I love going there on the lake, and been there with Cindy many times. Also, Cindy mentioned the IRA fund cruise. If you want to take a cruise with me and Cindy and a bunch of other really great investors, I would highly recommend you check out financialfriendsnetwork.com.
That's the cheapest money you can spend.
I would agree.
For the value you get.
I would completely agree. And Cindy, I just want to publicly thank you for being part of the Investor Success Mastermind and Coaching Program and really being a high-valued member of that. And I love the way that you're always willing to give little investing tips and strategies and little tweaks people can make along the way that really help shortcut your path to success. So
Well, I appreciate it, Jim. I've had people be very good to me along my path, so I think it's the right thing to do is to give back.
I do too.
And I'm grateful.
Well, yes, I am as well. Well, that's it for this very special episode of the Investor Success Podcast. I want to thank you guys for listening in. Again, my name is Jim Ingersoll, I'm not only the host of this podcast episode, I'm also the founder of the Investor Success Mastermind with great people like Cindy Crane, where I get to help investors achieve success investing in real estate. You can learn more about what we do in the Investor Success community at www.investorsuccessmastermind.com. Feel free to reach out to me at any time if you've got a question on something we talked about today. My email is jim@investingnownetwork.com. You've got Cindy's email as well. And by the way, I've got a free investing kit waiting for you today if you want to check it out at bigmoneyinvestor.com. Everyone, get out there, make some deals, find some sellers, and make some great money investing in real estate.
Thanks for joining us today. Be sure to share this podcast with your friends and social media contacts, and visit us online at www.bigmoneyinvestor.com.